And good evening, and welcome to Train Aficionado Live. I'm Jonathan Higgins. Tonight's show, we're going to take a look at some of those forgotten railways and mysterious ones. In the tradition of, or celebration, I should say, of Halloween coming up at the end of the month, we thought we would take a look at some of those railroads, and we're highlighting those in Massachusetts tonight. So we hope you can sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. We're looking forward to telling these stories of these forgotten railroads and mysterious ones. So um, I'm going to start the show right now, and let's take a look at the slide deck. So don't forget to support Train Aficionado Live. You can do that by logging on to the website, trainaficionado.com. You can check out our store, get some t-shirts, a hat, and even a couple of themed shirts as well. So you can check that out on our website, trainaficionado.com. While you're there, check out the blog and some of our trackside guides as well. One of the shows that I produced fairly recently was the 20-mile photographic journey up and through the Horseshoe Curve. If you haven't checked that out yet, make sure you check it out on the channel and all of our other videos as well. You can watch them right now on YouTube. And make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to all our social media as well: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. So let's dive right into this mysterious and forgotten railroads of Massachusetts. So first stop along this virtual journey we're going to take tonight is Clinton, Massachusetts. This is home to the Clinton Tunnel, which is over 1,000 feet long and once served the Central Massachusetts Railroad. Built in 1903 and served the railroad until August of the 11th of 1958. So if you're not familiar with the the Central Massachusetts Railroad, you can see it there on the map. It's the bold line that you can see, pretty straight for the most part, heading from Boston and heading out to the western part of the state. Along the route, of course, a lot of major towns along that way, almost following a parallel line to the Mass Turnpike. So when they were building the tunnel, they also had to build a viaduct to be able to connect up, and it went over the reservoir. You can see a part of it here, a photograph from April the 9th of 1903. Here's another shot of it being built over the viaduct there. I mean, this is just a massive project. You're thinking back to the early 1900s, being able to construct this. They didn't have computers and all this to be able to generate, plans and what such. So, this was a lot of math and drawing out everything that needed to be done with this project. And here it is, completed over the Wachusett Dam. You can see an eastbound train passing over the Clinton Viaduct on December the 11th of 1903. What a beautiful shot. That would have been an awesome shot. Today, being able to see one of those steam locomotives restored, going across the viaduct and then right into the tunnel. Here's what the tunnel looks like right now. This was a photo taken in 2017 of the West Portal. It looks like a long tunnel. There's a reason being for that. When it was created, it had an optical illusion where it seemed that the tunnel gone forever. So if you ever get the opportunity to walk through this tunnel, It'll certainly seem that way. I actually had that opportunity to walk through the tunnel, and I've got some photographs to show you what it looks like inside. Here's the tunnel way back when it had some track inside of it. It was a single line track. You see a gentleman right there on the side, sitting on the stonework, and you can see, a few more trees in the shot in this one, and then it all cleared out. This was a photograph taken in June the 17th of 1904. Here is the east portal, and you can see right through the tunnel. It's nice and straight. And here's another photograph. I don't know how they did this. And there's no drones or anything, but they were able to get this shot of a steam locomotive exiting out of the tunnel, and it looks exactly like this. It's there's rock on either side. Um, I'm trying to find some of the photos. Luckily enough, I had a couple of photos from that journey in through the tunnel, and look how spooky it is. I mean, once you get in the middle of the tunnel, you can see where they just basically blasted out the rock and what have you. I had to use the flash with this. I wasn't too sure how this was going to come out. And when I went into this tunnel, of course, once you're right in the middle, temperatures are right down to the 50s. So it was chilly inside there. So if you were able to walk through during a spring or summer day, you would notice a total temperature drop once you were in the middle of this tunnel. You can see in this section towards the end a little bit more nicer walls, and it's smooth. In the middle, you saw there, it wasn't really as elegant. So I'm not too sure why they didn't do the whole tunnel, but basically on this end, looks really nice in there. Currently, right now, this portion of that tunnel, they're actually going to be making it into a rail trail. So they're in the process of repairing that tunnel and making it so it's a rail trail through there. So we stay on the Central Massachusetts Railroad, and we take a look at a spot where there's tracks still in place. Now, this was as of 2017, and they're currently building also a bike trail here. I'm not too sure if it's going to connect all the way. Of course, the reservoir is going to create an issue and won't be able to connect everything together. They're certainly not going to build a viaduct, but let's take a look at some of these photos. So you can see on the image over on the left, the red indicates where the railroad line would have went through. As you can see, tree cover, you really don't see that line of where it was. And then we have a photograph on the right that shows a tree, and it's been growing for quite a while. Matter of fact, the bark has kind of formed itself over the top of the rail. Here's some photos here which show the track. There's actually 3 lines of track through here. And you can see a track way over to the left. I'm standing in the roadbed of the center of the middle track, and then there's a track over to the right. There was a station in this area. That's why there was 3 track through here, if I did my research correctly. And this would have headed directly towards the Clinton Tunnel, this line right here. So it was quite interesting. I forgot how I was able to see this. I think I knew that the railroad line was going through here, and I ended up seeing on a fall day or a winter day when I went here, I could see a glimpse of some of the track. Of course, during the summer when everything is blooming and the trees have leaves and everything, you're not able to see like you can in the fall and the winter. You're able to see these hidden treasures in the woods. So they're currently working on building a trail through here. I believe they're almost done with it. But you can see here such cool photos. And here's another image showing the 3 tracks. We're going to take a trip over to Holliston, Massachusetts. Now, many of you know me from the Scanner Guys show and say, geez, Holliston sounds familiar. That's where Scanner Master is headquartered out of, 215 Hopping Brook Road. Almost gave the old address. We kind of moved across the street when I was working there full time Currently, right now, I work as a contractor with Scanner Master, as a consultant, and then working with social media, and of course, doing the Scanner Guys show. So I, of course, was interested in the railroad line that went through Holliston, Massachusetts. It was the former Boston and Worcester Railroad, the Milford branch. So this line basically was around for quite a while until, um, I believe, until Conrail ended up not using it anymore, and then eventually it became abandoned, and then it eventually became a bike trail. So we're going to take a look at a tunnel here, not as long as the Clinton Tunnel, but still a significant tunnel, the Phipps Railroad Tunnel. Now take a look at this. Of course, the line's been converted into a bike trail. It's crushed stone. Really a cool photo there, just going underneath the Highland Street road, which is above. Passenger service actually ran on this line from 1959, and then freight until the 1990s. Eventually, I believe the town of Holliston and a few other communities paired together and got the line to be able to convert it into a bike trail. When I was back in Massachusetts, there were still some remnants of things I saw by an industrial building, a bumper, and some track that was still left there as a spur off the line. So when you're walking down this bike trail, you're able to see um, some of those pieces of, showing that it was a railroad right away at one point. The whole thing of this is they had severe drainage here. I wasn't able to find it, but there's a photograph of a locomotive that was going through here, and they had some issues. So they ended up putting up some retaining walls to prevent that drainage issue. And now you can actually walk this, and it's 12.3 miles. So it's a nice walk or bike ride through here. Now we're going to stay in Holliston now, and we're going to take a look at downtown Holliston and a really cool bridge that now you can walk across because they've done some work on it. So you can see the Boston and Albany Railroad Station, which is now the home of Casey's Pub. So this is a restaurant. So you have the ability to still visit this train station. It's been repurposed as a restaurant. Tracks, of course, are gone. I believe there's a few things in there. The last time I went in there, railroad related inside the building. Looks a little different. I mean, if you weren't paying attention, you probably wouldn't know that it was an old railroad station. Now, the bridge we're going to take a look at, which is a little bit further out from downtown, so basically on the other side of town, is the 8-arch bridge, as you can see right here. A beautiful bridge, built through a swampy section of land through here. Kept the rail line elevated as it's passing this location in Holliston. A couple other photographs here. You can see the top of the bridge. It was a single line track. They've actually redone this. I haven't been back to Massachusetts, but I've seen some photographs of it. It's got some side railings and everything. Looks beautiful. They did a great job. Of course, they've fixed everything up with the bridge, and of course, the rail line continues beyond this point. So beautiful walk now, or ride if you're biking. Let's take a look at this Millville location. Now, this is an interesting location, the Triad Bridge. Yeah, Triad. So basically, that means that there's 3 bridges. There was the Southern New England Railway, was going to be the bridge that was the highest. And then you had the New York and New England Railroad and the Providence Worcester. So basically, these railroad lines all cross each other No diamond, no nothing. What it would have been is a bridge over a bridge over a bridge. And as you can see on the image over on the right side, you can see the two abandoned railroad lines, the ones that have the brown dashes. And you see the Providence Worcester, which is the orange colored line that's cutting across there. So you can see that one goes the uh, Southern New England trunk line, which is the New York and New England Railroad, goes perfectly pretty straight across from left to right. And then you've got the Southern New England Railway, which is going across, down, and then over. So going left to right as well. And then, of course, the Worcester line, Providence Worcester, which is in that orange color, which is still active. Now, I want to point out all those things so you can kind of compare everything to the photographs I'm going to show later, actually right now. So an interesting story about the Southern New England Railways. Charles, which you see over here photographed on the right, Charles Hayes, the president of the Grand Trunk Railway, has an interesting story. This is a not so lucky railroad in Massachusetts. Hayes actually went down with the Titanic, making his way back from the UK to the US. He was trying to build a railroad that would be a major competitor. If you're familiar with Massachusetts, you know that the New York, New Haven, and Hartford Railroad ruled the roost for passenger service. Despite, him going down with the Titanic, they continued operating to build the railroad line. Unfortunately, they ran into several bumps along the way. Of course, a lot of things were going on in the early 1900s, and they were in the process of clearing the grade. They even built some bridge abutments, as you see here in these images on the left and the right. And then World War I happened and construction stopped. The railroad never came. So these bridge abutments were built. No bridges were ever built on these bridges abutments. So the third level, which would have been the top level going over the other two railroads, never came. Let's take a look at the lowest level. So basically, this is the Providence Worcester Railroad. This line serves as a main connection in between Providence, Rhode Island, and Worcester, Massachusetts. I discovered this location when I was chasing the circus train in 2017. I wanted to find a cool place to be able to take some photographs of the circus train passing. So I ended up finding this location and discovered that this spot has got a lot of history. Now, the great thing about this location is you have a couple of different, you can take a photograph of a train right at ground level, as you see here. And you can also take a picture of it on the New York, New England Railroad. Now, the railroad's long gone, but there is a bike trail there. And you can photograph the trains going underneath this bridge. And you can see those abutments again for the other railroad that never came. So this would have been a really cool spot if all three railroads came to life and you could have gotten three trains going over each bridge at the same time. That would have been super cool. It's a really cool bike trail. I've done it. It's a part of the Blackstone Railroad bike path. And this is going to go pretty much the distance from from Rhode Island all the way into basically Worcester. The New York, New England Railroad. So segments of this line were part of the MBTA line. Only portions of that is remaining. Other parts here and there in the States have been heading towards New York are still abandoned or they've been converted into rail trails. And you can see that the line is I know it's a little hard to see on this map, but it's that red line that's basically going from Boston into Rhode Island and down into Connecticut. And then, of course, to New York. Now, we can't talk about Massachusetts without talking about the Hoosick Tunnel. It's known as the Bloody Pit. From 1851 to 1873, it took quite a while to build this tunnel. At one point, it was the longest tunnel in the United States. There's some longer ones now, but it's 4.75 miles long. The East Portal is in Florida, Massachusetts. The West Portal is in North Adams, Massachusetts. You can see the tunnel right there. I put it on the map. You can see how long it is. It's going underneath the Hoosick Mountain. And let's take a look at the story of the Hoosick Tunnel. So here's the mountain right here. You can see they do have a center shaft where it kind of vents out the carbons out of the tunnel. I mean, it's a big tunnel. I've been on the eastern side of the tunnel, but I've never seen the western side. The western side's a bit tucked in the woods. There's a way to be able to get there. But the eastern side, there's a street that's right near there, and you can actually see it right down the tracks. Yes, the Bloody Pit. Some of the most deadliest accidents occurred at this tunnel while constructing it. Nearly 200 workers, actually over 200 workers, were killed in explosions, collapses, and by the hands of other workers. It's a long project. Some of the people probably was a good amount of their life career working on the tunnel. Let me tell you a little bit about this tunnel. We'll take a look at the East Portal. There was a story of Beekman, Nash, and Ringo, three gentlemen that basically were working on the tunnel. They actually were working with nitroglycerin. And this was introduced in America in 1865. So the crews were new to using this. This is something they didn't use all the time. This is brand new. And it basically blowing up, the rock to be able to get through the tunnel. So on the afternoon of March the 20th of 1865, the three explosive experts, as I mentioned their names, decided to give it a shot while they were working in the tunnel. They placed the charge and ran back to the safety bunker. But two of the gentlemen, Beekman and Nash, never made it back. So Kelly set off the charge before those two gentlemen got back to the shelter. Soon after that, of course, the two men were buried alive under the rock. And shortly after that, Kelly vanished without a trace. It wasn't until a year later, which is crazy, that his body was discovered 2 miles inside the tunnel. And it wasn't anything they believe was a railroad accident. They believe he was strangled. And to this day, they don't know who did it. He was just found in there, strangled. And whoever murdered him, we won't know and probably never will. The tunnel has a whole bunch of these stories. They say that there's ghosts haunting this tunnel. A lot of those experts that, looking for those auras and such have tried to explore this tunnel, and they believe it is very much haunted. I mean, over 200 people have sacrificed their lives for one way or the other, or could have been murdered, or whatever may be. So it's quite haunted. It is currently an active railroad line, so I don't recommend going inside this tunnel. Let's talk a little bit more about the tunnel. So we're looking at the east portal here. There is 2 tracks in there at this point. Now there's only 1 track. There's no longer 2 tracks going into the tunnel, so the track is more centered in there. I don't know how they got 2 tracks in there. It just seems crazy, but they did have it at that point. There was at one time they actually had electrified stuff running in through there. They had a cannery up on the top, so they can run electric locomotives, as you can see in this photo here. Now, you notice at the east portal, it looks like 2 tunnels. You see right over on the left side of that image, and then you see the actual tunnel on the right. They were having issues going through this spot over on the left, so they ended up switching the location of where they were going to go through the mountain over on the right. Here is the west portal. A little bit more fancier. It has the Huzik name on the top. Of course, there's a couple of buildings that are outside of the tunnel, which are no longer there. I've seen photographs of the tunnel. There's actually a door. They're able to shut the door of the tunnel if needed. But this is the west portal. During World War I, you can see troops patrolling the bridge at the Deerfield River, just outside of the east portal, and the west portal, because there was possible threats that this could be a target to damage this tunnel, because it was a right of way, bringing goods from east to west. So this was certainly a line that was well used for servicing America. And this was one of the locations they decided we need to protect it to make sure nobody harms, our goods going across America. Here's another photograph of the west portal. As you can see here, looking from inside the tunnel out. Of course, those buildings are long gone. And of course, it's 1 track, not 2. That wraps it up for our mysterious and forgotten railroads of Massachusetts. Really enjoyed, kind of telling you the story of this. Of course, there are several books out there about the Hoosick Tunnel. I've only, like just went over it, just 30,000 degree story of it. There's several books. There's even a couple of books that I have in my library back there of going into detail the various things that have happened over the construction of it. There's certainly a lot of history being as long as it took to be able to build that tunnel. And it was amazing, just to think of, this thing that was a work of art of its time. They started building it in 1851. And it took them almost 25 years to be able to complete it fully. And it's known as the Bloody Pit because there's over 2,000 people that, it's 200 people that sacrificed their lives to be able to build it. If you have any questions about tonight's program or anything railroad related, I'd love to answer those questions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a couple of slides, and we'll come back and I'll talk a little bit more about some rail fanning in Massachusetts. So let's take a look at a couple of slides before we go into that. So make sure you stay connected to Train Aficionado. You can sign up for our free newsletter, Trackside Bulletin, on our website, trainaficionado.com. While you're there, check out the blog, check out the store. Follow, like, and subscribe to our social media as well, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. And as I mentioned earlier, help support the channel by purchasing any of our swag. So there's a ton of abandoned railways in Massachusetts. Palmer, Mass is a great location, home of the Steaming Tender restaurant, and there was 7 railroads that went through Palmer, and most of them are abandoned. There's a few that are left. I've done, I believe, I've talked about that on some of the past shows. But yeah, it is quite interesting to be able to trace the lines of an abandoned railroad. A lot of times you can use Google Earth, and if you've got a starting point, then you're basically tracking the cut. You may be able to see it, especially in Ohio. It may be a cut that's going across farmlands or going through a city or town. Some of it, which may be a tree line that's there, and you're following it essentially. So there's several books out there, especially from Massachusetts. Branch Line Publication, I believe, is one of the places that I would check out online. And they have some really good books, basically covering the history of the active lines and also the history of some of the abandoned lines. I have several editions of the books, and I spend a lot of time looking at it because I was looking for history of these abandoned railroad lines. I mean, it's just as fun rail fanning the active lines and trying to find the abandoned ones. And a lot of which some of the abandoned railroad lines have been converted to bike trails. A lot of them here in Ohio are now bike trails. So now you can basically walk or bike along a historical rail line that may have carried freight goods or even passenger service. And some of the bridge trestles have been converted so you can walk across them, which is really cool. So definitely take a look at some of the rail trails that are out there, and some of which may be on an abandoned railroad line. But yeah, the Hoosick Tunnel is quite interesting. So it's definitely something you want to research and take a look at online. I mean, there's tons of stuff on there. I covered a couple of tunnels, in Massachusetts. Of course, there's tunnels all over the country. There's one that's in Virginia. I can't remember where it is, but it's now converted into a rail trail, and I definitely want to check it out. Yeah, I'm still excited just to be able to explore, and learn more about these abandoned railroads. I think I'm going to wrap it up for this evening. I thank you so much for joining us this evening. Yes, so Chris is commenting, actually, the president of the Cincinnati Railroad Club. Yeah, abandoned railroad lines. Yeah, there's several of them out there, and some of which are not a good bike trail, but they have some access to some remote points that are not trespassed. So make sure you're careful, because a lot of these railroad lines, some of which, they've been sold off to people that neighbor the railroad line, and some of which are there and they're a mere trail along along the route. So definitely check that out. Oh yes, the Attleboro trolley. What was that? The Gee Whiz line, or it basically ran from downtown Attleboro to North Attleboro. And then in North Attleboro, if you're familiar there was a railroad line over there. I can't remember what railroad it was, but basically it's running through outside of the city, just north, and you can see that it's an elevated um, line, and the bridge abutments are still there, which is really neat. I've actually written a blog entry about this line, which you can check out on trainaficionado.com. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interesting things, even with trolley lines as well out there. Yeah, I mean, the Gee Whiz line, I think that's what it was called. And you can see it in North Attleboro. There, actually, in Attleboro, there's a cut that's not too far from the Northeast Corridor. Of course, I don't have something to be able to show you real quick, but yeah, you can definitely spot some spots of that right away. And then there's other parts that you can't really see. But yeah, I mean, that's another cool thing, is being able to track. Peck Street. That's exactly, yeah, you're familiar with that. Yeah, Peck Street is definitely over there, and it's certainly a really cool thing to be able to track the history of that. Um, my uncle worked for the Taunton water department. So they were constantly digging up the street for various projects, being the water department. And of course, they paved over the track all the time. So he was running into trolley track all the time. And they've had, of course, when they were ripping it up, they had to take out the track so they could do it properly. Basically putting in the pipes and then, of course, covering it up. Les, thank you so much for joining me this evening. I really appreciate everyone that's taken a moment to watch our program. We will have lots of great programs coming up in the upcoming weeks, so definitely check it out. If you're new to the Train Aficionado show, it's basically the first and third Wednesdays of every month. If you're in the area of Cincinnati, make sure you check out the Cincinnati Railroad Club. They're a really cool organization. They have meetings on the first Thursday of every month, and that's definitely something cool to check out. They usually have guest speakers. I've actually had the opportunity to be able to talk about the horseshoe curve there, and I hope to do another presentation. That was a lot of fun, being able to do it in a theater in front of a live studio audience, which was really cool. So we thank you so much for joining us this evening. If you want to reach out, you certainly can reach out to Train Aficionado through the website. And we hope to see you next month. Will be our next show, which is going to be November the 2nd. So definitely tune in and join us. Have a great night. We'll catch you again next week.